So you can get through a solo, but it's starting to feel like you're just stringing together a bunch of ideas. Maybe you can get lost in the form while you're playing, but ultimately you're just feeling like it's boring. Like you're just playing the same ideas over and over again. And your bandmates, their eyes just kind of glaze over, and maybe they don't even come back in after your solo because they're not really paying attention. If this is what's happening with you right now, it's probably because you haven't developed a dynamic sense of phrasing. And what do I mean by that? A dynamic sense of phrasing means that you can express yourself in all different ways, right? Phrasing is like how you put your ideas together, you know? If vocabulary is the words, then phrasing is how you put the sentences together, right? And just like we want to have all types of different vocabulary, like paradiddles, you know, six-stroke rolls, we want to have linear vocabulary, we want to have all different types of phrasing as well, right? We want to be able to do longer phrases, shorter phrases, and be able to have command over that, because that's really how you can be creative, is when you have options within a medium, right? Imagine if you're a painter, you want to have all different colors that you can paint with. Same thing with phrasing. We need to have all different types of phrasing that we can phrase with. So in this video, what we're going to do is we're going to go through how you can develop your sense of phrasing in multiple different ways by using the tune I'll Remember April as an example, okay? So the first way that you can approach your phrasing on this tune is you could think of the big picture form, okay? Now it's important, you might not even know the big picture form for this, right? And I'll tell you right now, the big picture form for this is, the form is A, B, A, and it's a 16 bar A, a 16 bar B, and a 16 bar A, okay? That's the form of this tune, right? So if we have that form, we can basically just solo over that. We can play a big 16 bar A, big 16 bar B, and then one more 16 bar A. Let's see if I can do that. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. Okay, cool. So that's one way to phrase it. If I can just keep track of 16 bar A, 16 bar B, kind of hear that form in my head, then that's one way that I can get through the solo. Okay? You might start to feel, however, that that is too long, right? Because a 16 bar phrase can be really hard to feel. It's easier to feel 1 bar phrases, 2 bar phrases, 3 bar, 8 bar, right? These smaller chunks are easier for our brain to handle, and it's easier to like stack together smaller chunks. So what we can do is we can actually start to layer these together, okay? We can start to subdivide these into smaller phrases, okay? A good way to think about it with this tune is this tune switches between Latin and swing, right? So the first part is Latin. 1, 2, 3, 4, swing, right? So that's 8 bars of Latin, right? So we can go Latin for 8, okay? And then for the next 8 bars, ba ba da ba ba da da da, ba ba do ba dee ba da 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 da, that's swing for 8, okay? And that alone is the A section, right? You remember how earlier we were saying how the A is 16 bars. Well, those 16 bars we can subdivide into 8 Latin and 8 swing, right? And then the bridge is all swing. Ba da ba ba da 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 ba da 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 ba da 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 bu da da do da ba da da do 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 ba ba da, right? Swing for 16. Okay, great. Then when we come back to the A, as any ABA song will do, we do exactly what we did in the first day, which is Latin for 8 and swing for 8. And that makes 16. Okay, so you see how this is really the same form as the original one, but just with a little bit more layers to it, right? Which is going to actually, for most of us, it's going to make it easier for us to keep track of the form, and also gives us more options for expressing ourselves, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to really over-exaggerate the Latin so that you can hear when I'm doing it, okay? Let's do it. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, cool. So, a little over the top, I brought out like the Art Blakey, like 12/8, big, crazy thing, right? But that's one way to subdivide the form. And you can see there that already it brought out different forms of expression for me, right? I'm exploring this thing, this kind of timbale sound. And also I brought out like 8 bars of my solo, I don't know if you noticed, was just a groove. It was just this 12/8 bembe thing. And I just guarantee that if you play that at a jam session, people are gonna be, oh, right? Especially if you play it like really big and confident. That's what creates musicality, right? Is saying something and freaking meaning it. You know what I mean? Like, it's one thing to, okay, here's my solo. It's another thing. Say it and mean it. It's not just a volume thing. It's an intention thing, right? Okay, so you're getting more free with this. We can think 16 bar A, 16 bar B, 16 bar A. We can think 8 Latin, 8 swing, 8 Latin, 8 swing, right? We can subdivide it like that. There's an even further level if you really want to get expressive with this, but you might be thinking at this point like, dude, you're talking about all this phrasing. I don't know this tune. I need to learn this tune. And I don't have all this vocabulary. You're playing all these licks that make me get lost, and I can't even be that expressive. I'm just playing paradiddles. That's because you need to work on more than just phrasing, right? So I can't cover all of that in this video, but this is something that I work on with my students. So if you want to get some more information about how to work together more closely so that you can start learning tunes, get some real jazz vocabulary, really dial in your phrasing, start going to jam sessions and getting gigs, my students are doing all of those things. So I can definitely help you to do that if you're the right committed student, okay? So if that's something you're interested in, click the link in the description to reach out how to get more info on how we can work together. I also have a free resource that you can sign up for that I'll give you a couple free jazz drumming lessons that cover all of those topics that I just mentioned, okay? Now, the third way that you can express yourself with your phrasing on this tune is to do something I call melody mapping, okay? Now, melody mapping is a term that basically means copying the phrasing of the melody. And this goes even more granular than what's going on with this Latin swing kind of vibe, okay? And it takes it to where we're actually going to copy the specific phrasing of the melody, okay? So the beautiful thing about these jazz standard melodies is they already have so much phrasing and repetition built into them, right? That's why they're so musical. That's why they stood the test of time. Right? And so if we can copy the phrasing of it, it's a really good source of inspiration for our own drum solos, our own comping, anything really. Right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to map the melody of this. Okay, so check this out. The first phrase, 1. Okay, that's a 3-bar phrase and then a rest, right? 1. Maybe there's a rest for like 2 beats here at the end, right? So it goes 3.5 bars. Right? Same thing happens again. It's kind of a sequence. It ends a little bit different, but for our intents and purposes, we're going to basically say that it's kind of a sequence, the same phrase, just down a half step or whatever. Okay, and then it changes. Right? So that one, it's kind of like that's a 2-bar phrase that kind of releases on 1-2 of the 3rd bar. And then another 2-bar phrase. It ends up being a different 2-bar phrase, but kind of ends in a similar spot, okay? Again, I'm not adding the pickups, I'm not being specific with the rhythms. That's not the point of this. It's to be general. It's phrasing, right? It's not details. It's not the commas in the sentence. It's the vibe of the whole sentence, okay? Now, that is our A section. Okay, now the B section. Let's just kind of check out the phrase lengths for this one. This one doesn't sequence as much. Ba-da, ba-ba-da-da-da-da-da. Okay, so that's basically a 3.5 bar phrase. Ba-da-da-ba-da-da-da-da-da, right? Da-da, that's like one and then off. And then it starts again. Ba-da-da-da-da-da-da, right? It goes, this is more like a 2-bar phrase that releases kind of like right here, the downbeat of the 3rd bar. Ba-ba-da-da-da-da-da-da. There's a pickup there. We're going to ignore the pickup. Right? That's going to be another kind of 3-bar phrase, 2-bar phrase with a downbeat. Right? And then another one of those, okay? So that's kind of the phrasing of this one. It's like a longer phrase and then a shorter, 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 okay? Then we're back to the last A section, which has that form that we outlined up here. It's the sequence and then the 2 shorter phrase, okay? Sequence and 2 shorter phrase. Okay, and then let's go ahead and add in where our B section starts. So here's the B and the last A, okay? So, great, now we have what I call a melody map. And this, if we look at the big picture, gives us kind of the big picture phrasing. This is more detailed than swing 8 Latin. It's very similar, but it gives us a little more edge, and it gives us, you know, something that we can express ourselves with, right? You can see that the original one is really big picture, then it's a little bit more zoomed in, then it's a little bit more zoomed in, okay? So now I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna try to play a solo with this melody map. Here we go. A really important thing here is these 2 red ones. I'm gonna try to play something that's the same phrase twice to really copy the phrasing of the melody here. Let's see how I do. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. Okay, cool. So you see, that was very restrictive. That can be really challenging at first to play those very specific phrase lengths. And you can hear that, you know, it does end up sounding a little bit square, but the point of this is not actually to play that phrasing exactly. It's to build your ability to phrase, right? When you're practicing, you want to practice things that are hard, things that break your normal muscle memory patterns and that build new habits of phrasing, right? So if you just go through these 3 different ways of phrasing, it's going to build kind of your intuition for phrasing and give you options. That way, when you do go to solo, you can just kind of let it flow out, and it's going to flow in different ways that are more interesting. It's more dynamic because you have different ways to phrase. So if you found this video interesting, I recommend you check out the next video right here. It's probably going to be really cool for you. See you on the next one.